Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Threezero Diecast DLX scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today we're taking a look at none other than the leader of the Autobots himself, Optimus Prime. I personally am super excited to get this guy opened up and standing alongside the Megatron that we reviewed recently on the channel. I'm pretty sure all of you knew this guy was coming because of course you can't have one without the other. This is Optimus Prime based off his appearance in the Netflix series, so if you do like the series, this might be a figure for you. Now if you are looking to pick him up, he is in stock right now with toyswonderland.com. The link for that is of course down in the description below, and they do have 12-month installment plans if you are a fan of paying off your figures over time. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here of course we have the box art for Optimus Prime. It's done in the same style as Megatron, which is to be expected. He is after all in the exact same line. We do have an image of the figure right up here on the front of the box with this artistic style wash over the top with a bunch of weathering and scratches. It looks rather fantastic. On the inside, we do have an image of the figure once again, and then the figure himself. We do have some legal information on the side, and a big honkin' Autobot logo on the back there. Now, seeing as y'all liked it so much in my last video, let's get this guy out here. And here we have him. I'm really curious as to how he's going to scale alongside Megatron, because if you do remember, Megatron was actually slightly smaller than the Threezero DLX scale Bumblebee movie figures. So if this Optimus Prime scales better with them remains to be seen. But here we have him, and so far, yeah, this is a DLX figure. He's a chunky, hefty boy. And as you can see, he comes with not only one, but two trays. So what we are going to do now is get all of Optimus Prime's accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all the bits and pieces that come with Optimus. Now let's start off by taking a look at the display base first. It's that same Threezero DLX style base, and yeah, I really like it. It is a rather large footprint, but Optimus is a rather large bot, so this in my opinion works really nicely. You can see Siege, War for Cybertron Trilogy printed on the front, and it does still have this same really well articulated display base arm. It moves up and down, forward and back, and yes, it does lock in place. So even a hefty, sturdy bot like Optimus can be in midair with the use of this base. Now technically this really isn't an accessory, it's more part of Optimus himself, but this piece actually pegs on his back. In the actual transformable figure, this is part of the kibble that would form the truck mode. You can actually see the components on the back. This doesn't convert in any way to anything, it's literally just a hunk that pegs on to his back. Even this has some die-cast in it. This top articulated section that can move is made of die-cast. Quite surprising and very, very sturdy. This also gives you a little bit of a preview as to the beautiful paint applications that we'll see on the figure himself. Now he does come with a few weapons. This piece is technically this thing right here. In the transformable figure, it actually converts into this, his Cybertronian style axe. I never personally used this with the figure, but he does use it in the show, so technically you can use it with your Threezero Optimus here. You can also use it as a shield and peg it in to the side of his arm, and there is a significant amount of oil staining and chipping and wear and tear on it. It looks pretty darn fantastic. The last weapon he does come with is of course his signature ion blaster. It's a very classic G1 style, but still with a little bit of a stylized look about it. It has weathering over the top, and yes, it does look really, really nice in person. Lastly, he does come with a regular array of Threezero style hands. We've seen this stuff before, we kind of know what to expect by now. It's painted marvelously, and you can see all of the detail on the hand itself. The only thing that I personally think is missing from these releases is an articulated pair of hands. You can even see the little spaces where the joints could go. If Hot Toys can do it with an Iron Man figure, you definitely can do it here with Optimus Prime, but nevertheless you do get a few pre-posed versions of the hands in the various different gestures. What we are going to do now though is get Optimus himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. This guy in person looks absolutely insane. I am in love with this figure. He pretty much is my favorite Optimus Prime collectible that I now own. Yeah, he's that darn good. Literally just looking at him in this shot right here, he looks like an animation version of Prime. That's how well Threezero have translated that CGI model to figure format. It looks unreal. The paint applications are beautiful, the sculpt is immaculate, and when we get to the light up feature, he gets even better. What we are going to do now though is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal. This guy looks and feels absolutely awesome in hand. I was not prepared for the amount of surface detail in terms of paint applications and sculpt that is dotted around this entire figure. I don't know why that would be the case, because I've been impressed time and time again with Threezero's robot figures. This guy might just be my personal favorite to date, and it could come down to the design. This is a very classic G1 style Optimus Prime. It literally, from this image right here, looks like a still from the show. That's how seamless and badass this figure does look in hand. Now let's talk about the light up feature, because the way they've done it is pretty darn ingenious. You basically just remove the head and the switch is on the front. Now his eyes are lit up. But this is the party piece. If we go ahead and install it on the inside, there is a connection on the head that when you plug it in, lights up the chest as well. And this thing in low light, which you will see later in the video, looks unreal. It looks exactly like the show. These lights and the way they've engineered the mechanism with this little connector piece on the front is just genius. Threezero time and time again impress me with little things like that. It looks awesome. You'll have to take my word for it. When you get yours in hand, go and grab some batteries, light him up. You'll be super darn impressed. As for the head sculpt, yeah, that's Optimus Prime. It looks fantastic. There's battle damage and weathering, and also a scratch down the front of his face. All of the damage is fully sculpted in on the windows, on the chest, down here on the crotch section, on the abs, pretty much throughout. Unlike the Hasbro version, which, yes, can transform and is a lot cheaper, those details were simply printed on, which works for that smaller scale. But here, in the DLX line, I much prefer the proper sculpted in detailing. Now let's talk about the upper torso. It's very classic Optimus Prime, until you turn it to the side and you can see these big honkin' things and this piece out the back, which is accurate to the figure. You actually pull it out and rotate it around to transform the smaller scale version. No, this guy does not transform into a truck. It's just a nice, super articulated, high-end, super well-painted version of Optimus Prime. And yeah, it's made of diecast. I'm not sure if I've mentioned that yet. You can see the wheels on the inside there, and this beautiful white stripe along the front. I also like the proper visible diecast in the joints, and also the subtle nod to the G1 Optimus Prime with the lines and the arrow down here on the forearm. Some of you may be thinking, why on earth did they not go with the Earthrise design? Well, we haven't seen that yet in the show. This is the design that we saw for Earthrise and also Siege, so that's exactly why they've gone for this look based off the Netflix series. Now coming down to the legs, these are hefty and chunky. This entire foot is made of diecast. It's a super heavy-duty, sturdy base for Optimus, because he is a rather hefty boy. You can also see a bunch of chipping and weathering, and also some tires tucked in behind this section that, yes, do actually rotate, and they are made of rubber as well, just for good measure, to make it as accurate as possible. Overall, I am in love with the way this guy looks. Who knew taking a figure, converting it into a CGI model for a show, and then converting it back into a figure would make something as beautiful in hand as this guy right here. And now for those of you who always head down to the comments to tell me that I didn't show the lights with the lights off in the light box, well, here it is, and as you can see, it looks really darn good. The eyes are suitably vibrant, and the chest looks absolutely stunning. I'm really impressed with the light up effect. The only complaint that I may potentially have is these cab lights up the top, just above the chest windows, don't really do a great job of having the light passing through. But overall, I'm still really impressed with the light up function. Let me know though what you think of the lights down in the comments below. And because I'm sure someone would want to see this, here is the shield pegged in to his arm. You can of course rotate it and get it in the orientation you want it to be in, and it looks okay. I've never been a fan of these sort of gimmicky throw-in things. I'm talking, of course, about the Hasbro figure, not this guy, because he's just replicating the way it looked in the show, and of course the Hasbro item itself. I've never really liked these throw-in accessories. However, with this guy, I do think it works okay. I prefer the axe configuration of this piece right here, and at the very least, only one of these is an actual peg port. These ones on the other side and up here on the smokestacks are the illusion of a peg port with a little bit of detail on the inside. Same thing on this side, it's just this one piece right here that we can take the shield and peg it into. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have Optimus standing alongside Megatron. He is ever so slightly taller than the leader of the Decepticons, but he does have those drop-down hips, so technically you could drop them down ever so slightly and make him a little bit taller than Prime. Nevertheless, I think they look stunning together. I hope that Threezero continue this line, because these two are a really promising start. If they don't though, Optimus and Megatron is a pretty good way to end the line as well, because they are the two most iconic, in my opinion, Transformers characters, and now having them in DLX scale, representing the show, for me personally, if they don't make any more, I will be happy. I'll be even more happy if they do continue the line, but either way, I'm satisfied. These two look fantastic standing side by side. That's just what I personally think though. I'm curious. Let me know what you think of these two down in the comments below. Now unfortunately, I no longer own my Siege version of Optimus Prime, so here he is standing alongside the Earthrise version. And as you can see, he is dramatically taller. This scale would be about accurate to the Siege version as well, and here you can see what I was talking about earlier in terms of how a lot of people would probably want this version translated into a DLX scale figure. Now there isn't any Netflix branding on the box, it's just Siege. So technically, if they wanted to, they could make an Earthrise version of him as well. I have my fingers and toes crossed that they keep this line going by making Kingdom figures. I am envisioning a Beast Wars, Optimus Primal, and Megatron in Threezero Diecast DLX scale, and I'm super darn excited. I really hope they make that happen, because that would be, for a Beast Wars fan, pretty much the ultimate fully articulated representation of those characters. But only time will tell. Either way, Prime here looks pretty darn good in both his versions. Just going over articulation on Optimus. Now bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Also, there are about 1,000,001 different panels and bits and pieces that can move on him, so if I miss a joint, I do apologize. Starting off with the head sculpt itself, it is on multiple different joints. As you can see, the head is moving and also the base of the neck is as well, for a rather supreme range of motion. The arms themselves will go up on that joint, but then there's another joint on the inside underneath this shoulder pad plate, which gives you a massive range of motion. They also, of course, move forward and back, and there is a butterfly joint in there at the shoulder. You do have a swivel at the bicep, a double bend at the elbow, and of course a ball joint down here at the wrist. As for the torso, this, in my opinion, is totally mind-blowing. Just check how much motion you can get out of this solid hunk. Honestly, I didn't even think this would move at all, but Threezero, of course, are showing their engineering prowess by making stuff like this happen when you'd otherwise expect this to be one solid piece. The legs themselves will move forward, but there are hip skirts which can ever so slightly move out of the way. You can also drop the legs down on a separate joint. As you can see, this leg is now a lot lower than that one to get an even greater range of motion. They of course go out as well. There is a swivel at the upper thigh, a double bend at the knee, and I really like the way they've done that with a piston style ratchet joint on the inside. We also of course have a ball joint down here at the ankle, plus some toe articulation for good measure. Just wrapping up on the DLX scale Optimus Prime by Threezero, based on his appearance in the Netflix Siege series. Now I have to say, I already kind of knew what to expect going into this because I recently reviewed their Megatron from the same line. That guy was stunning. But there's only so much detail you can pack in when the figure is already a silver piece. Fast forward to today and we have Optimus Prime in hand. This guy is far and away superior in a lot of aspects. Number one, the light up feature is insane, the way it looks and the way it's engineered to function. He's chock full of diecast. And then we get to the sculpt and the paint applications. When you have a super punchy, vibrant red with a silver dry brush over the top, oil stain wash in the crevices, and the same thing on the blue, it just looks insane in person. I know I've said that a couple of times already throughout the course of the video, but if you haven't pre-ordered this guy and you're thinking about picking him up, now's the time, because when Season 3 rolls around, this guy is available on the open market, he's going to be snapped up, because yeah, he is that darn awesome. This is now my favorite Optimus Prime thing in my entire collection. Even more so than some of the transformable ones. I know, sacrilege to say. But don't forget, if you do want a version of this that can transform, there is that available on the market. You can just go ahead and get the Hasbro one. It looks exactly like this, minus the stunning paint applications and the light up effect, mind you. But it transforms into a truck. I personally wanted the most high-end, premium version of this look for Optimus, and that's what we have here. I don't expect my Superman figures to actually fly. I'm pretty sure you can get one that's integrated into a quadcopter, but then it has its own drawbacks. The same thing can be said for fully transformable figures, and then this guy right here. So please, do not head down to the comments and say stuff like, if it doesn't transform, it's not Optimus Prime. Because that's obviously not true. It's still Optimus Prime. It just doesn't turn into a truck with rotating, rolling wheels. Nevertheless, if you are looking to pick this guy up, he is in stock right now with toyswonderland.com. The link for that is of course down in the description below, and yes, they do have 12-month installment plans if you are a fan of paying off your figures over time. Also, while you are down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.